There's been a lot of talk about trophy hunting lately, with people feeling very strongly for or against it. So let's delve into this controversy with the help of an actual case study that is happening right now. Recently, a female lion known as Blondie was shot dead by a dentist in Zimbabwe. She was 13 years old and had been fitted with a GPS tracking collar as part of a research project looking at lion movement in the area. The hunt itself was legal, but many people have expressed outrage that a lion that was helping scientists track other lions would be killed for a trophy. But are those people right to be outraged? And what did the science say in the first place? In today's episode, we are going to be answering these questions and looking more closely at the role that science plays in trophy hunting. When people hear about someone killing a lion, most of them assume that they were killed for their fur or because the lion was dangerous, but in reality, it's more likely that they were killed for sport. There are three different ways that people legally hunt lions. You can shoot one in a zoo, which I don't think anyone should do, or you can shoot one in captivity at a game farm or in the wild. Game farms are usually privately owned properties where wild animals roam freely on the land, and they have become popular places to go hunting because it's relatively easy to get close to animals. Here, as there are often fewer predators and the prey animals live in open areas that are easy to see across. In contrast, hunting lions in the wild is much harder. This type of hunting is called canned hunting, and it's very controversial, not least because lions in zoos and on game farms have a much lower chance of survival than wild lions. So that raises another question. How common is canned hunting? Well, it is actually impossible to know how many lions are shot in captivity because records are kept by private landowners and there isn't any central authority keeping track of it all. But it is believed to be fairly common. One researcher estimated that over 6,000 lions are killed each year at game farms. The other kind of lion hunting is done out in the open, and this is the type that most people think of when they hear the term lion hunting. These hunts take place on national parks and wildlife reserves, and quotas are set based on population numbers. This means that if there are lots of lions in the reserve, more hunters will be allowed to come and hunt. And if there are fewer lions, then fewer hunters will be allowed. But the problem is that there's no international agreement on what a healthy lion population looks like, so the quotas set for each reserve vary massively. For example, in some places only 1 or 2 lions can be hunted per year, whereas in others up to 100 lions can be hunted every year. This level of variation means that lion hunting can sometimes do more harm than good. I am going to tell you about some research that looked at the effect of hunting on lion populations over time, and you can see whether you think the results support or challenge your views on the topic. Between 1992 and 2010, South Africa issued permits for around 27,000 lions to be hunted. Some of these were from captive populations, but most of them were taken from national parks and nature reserves. In 2018, a researcher used data on all of these hunts to work out how the population of lions had changed between 1990 and 2010. They also gathered data on the sex and age of the lions that were hunted to determine if certain demographics were more likely to be targeted. Their results showed that even though the number of lions being hunted increased over time, the total lion population remained fairly stable throughout the study period. However, the proportion of females being hunted increased from around 20% in the early 90s to over 40% in the late 2000s. Similarly, younger lions were more likely to be killed towards the end of the study period too. These results suggest that lion hunting may be shifting from being a sustainable practice to one that could threaten the long-term survival of lions. It may be the case that male hunters are preferentially targeting breeding females and younger lions to increase the likelihood of getting a bigger and better trophy. But this is obviously bad news for the species because females are needed to reproduce and young lions need to breed and disperse to make new populations. So we can see that lion hunting can be bad news for lions. But surely hunting them helps to protect their habitats and provide funding for conservation efforts. Right. Well, perhaps surprisingly, we don't have much evidence that hunting helps to protect lions. In fact, in some places, it might even be making things worse. But before we dive into the reasons why, it's worth explaining how hunting permits actually work, because they can look quite different depending on where in the world you are. In some countries like Zimbabwe, hunters buy a permit that allows them to kill a single lion during their visit. In other countries like Tanzania, hunters can bid for the right to hunt a lion, and the money goes to the government. And in some countries like Kenya, hunting permits are free. But this doesn't mean that hunting is free. Hunters often have to pay additional fees to access the land, to hire trackers and skinners, and to transport the goods out of the country. We don't know exactly how much money hunters are spending on hunting lions because this varies so much depending on the country and the individual circumstances of the hunt. But estimates suggest that hunters spend anywhere from hundreds to thousands of dollars. Now, the money generated from these hunts does sometimes go towards funding conservation efforts, but it's not always directed there. In 2013, an investigation found that none of the fees collected from hunters in Tanzania were being spent on conservation projects. Instead, the money was being put towards general government expenditure. In Zimbabwe, a similar investigation found that the Department of National Parks and Wildlife Management spent less than half of the money generated from hunting on actual conservation projects. So while, in theory, hunting could help to fund conservation efforts, in practice, this doesn't seem to be the case. But surely killing lions helps to protect their habitat because if an animal dies, it leaves space for more plants to grow, and more plants means more food for more herbivores, which means more space for more people. Right? Well, maybe not. Protecting an area from human encroachment can have a positive effect on local biodiversity, but it's not as simple as just removing a few animals. And besides, it turns out that lions aren't particularly good at creating space for humans anyway. A study published in 2015 analyzed the relationship between lion density and human population density in Tanzania. They found that even in areas where there were lots of lions, people still lived there, and they didn't find any evidence that lion presence prevented people from living in an area or using it for farming. So we can't really say that killing lions creates space for people. Okay, so hunting lions doesn't seem to save their habitat and might actually be making things worse. So how about if we focus on the individual animal? Surely killing sick or old animals benefits the rest of the population because they aren't using resources that could be used by healthier animals. Well, yes, it can be beneficial to remove sick or old animals from a population, but not if the individuals being removed are contributing to the overall health of the group. And unfortunately, lions that are involved in scientific research fall into this category. In Blonde's case, she was wearing a GPS tracker because she was part of this study looking at how lions use their habitat. Tracking devices like these are expensive and they can only be fitted to a subset of the lion population. So researchers are careful to choose individuals that represent the wider group. For example, in Blondie's case, she was chosen because she was an adult female. These types of lions are important to track because they tend to stay in one area and defend the territory, so they are thought to be important for maintaining genetic diversity within populations. By removing these kinds of lions from the population, researchers risk skewing their results and missing important insights into the behavior of the species. What's more, hunting lions that are involved in scientific research removes animals that have already contributed to the existing body of knowledge and are therefore irreplaceable. And in Blonde's case, she had provided valuable information about her local lion population. Her collar had recorded over 1,000 lion, sightings since she had been fitted with it, and these sightings had helped to identify key areas of lion habitat. The irony of killing an animal that is contributing to its own conservation isn't lost on the researchers who have been studying her. The lead researcher said, "It is devastating to lose a wild animal in this way when it is contributing so much to our understanding of how lions survive in the face of so many threats." Blondie's story brings up an important point about the ethics of killing animals for trophies. Is there ever a justification for doing this? Well, personally, I can't see how killing an animal for a trophy could ever be justified, but I can understand how people reach different conclusions. After all, hunting is a traditional practice, and people argue that if it is done sustainably, it can help to protect animal populations. What I find difficult to reconcile myself with is how killing animals for trophies can ever be justified, especially when those animals are contributing to scientific research that might actually help to conserve the species. Do you agree with me, or do you think that there are situations where killing an animal for a trophy can be justified? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode and you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. All the best, and see you next time.